Hey, what's going on, guys? So today I stumbled on an interview between a very famous person called Layah Heilpern. She has like 300,000 subscribers. She's a Bitcoin advocate. That's her whole channel. That's what it's about. And then she's debating with someone called Peter Schiff, who is uh, he's a capitalist. He's a freedom fighter, like Layah, like myself. However, he is anti crypto, anti Bitcoin, and he's pro gold. And I thought that this would be a great way for me to do some commentary, on this topic that is very near and dear to my heart. I have it with a lot of people online, and I mentioned in my Discord that I hope that one day I'm big enough that I can talk with these people, or maybe be able to like have some sort of discussion with them, have some debate with them. Now, if Layah or Peter hop onto this because they see themselves in the thumbnail and they see like a bunch of toys in the background and they see like this nerd talking about Yu-Gi-Oh, they're gonna be like, "What the hell is this?" and just hop off. But hopefully they stick around and hear what I have to say. I think I have a pretty strong understanding of both of these things. I have a pretty strong understanding of macroeconomics. It is a hobby of mine, and I'm a big fan of money. Like, I like understanding how money works, and this is sort of like a collecting slash investing channel. Like, we do a lot of value assessment and stuff like this. So I figured like this is a good way to introduce myself in other realms other than just Yu-Gi-Oh, because like, believe it or not, Yu-Gi-Oh is like probably like third or fourth on my list of things that I understand. So in terms of like how deep I understand things. So let's kick it off. This is how the video starts. It's basically Peter Schiff right here. He has a huge podcast. Check it out. Obviously, like, yeah. And he's talking to Layah. And I guess what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pause it and what's it called? Talk about, give my commentary on their thoughts, because I do feel like Layah as well as Peter have some things missing about their understanding of what money is, why Bitcoin is important, why gold is also important. So without further ado, let's begin. So I don't know if can you guys hear it? You guys can't hear it, can you? Okay, actually, let me just do it like this.
I'm gonna take you to jail.
Okay, well, I'm gonna be all right. I have a warrant for your arrest. Tell me where you're.
Can you guys hear this?
Excuse me, I have a warrant for your arrest. Let me in your house. No. Where's your gold? If you don't tell me where your gold is, I'm gonna take you to jail.
Okay, well, I'm gonna be all right. I have a warrant for your arrest. Tell me where your Bitcoin wallet.
What? You guys can hear it. Can you guys see it or no? Because on my OBS, it doesn't seem like it shows. But I might be incorrect. You can't see. Okay. How about now?
Why we think you do?
Okay.
Okay.
Go look for it.
Well, they're not going to find my gold either.
Well, of course they can. Of course they can. They can look
So
for
they
it.
can't.
It's physical and it exists in
Well, isn't your Bitcoin stored on something physical? You have like a flash drive, or even if you wrote down your seed phrase on a piece of paper.
It's not on this piece of paper. It's in my head.
Oh, your whole seed phrase is in your head.
Yes, because I understand what it means to be a sovereign individual, and I do not take that lightly. So joining me today is American stockbroker, financial commentator, and media personality. He's the CEO of Euro Pacific Asset Management and the founder of Schiff Gold. He's also one of the biggest critics of Bitcoin, which is exactly why we're here today. We first clashed heads back in February earlier this year on Fox News, where we debated Bitcoin versus gold. So here we are, ready for round two. Peter Schiff, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing all right. Thanks for coming to visit me.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Like I said, we clashed heads back in February, so there's some stuff.
Okay, I'm gonna actually skip some of this stuff because like it's not really necessary.
Power, they have a monopoly on fork.
Okay.
Takes away because government.
Free enterprise capitalist.
Yes, and if you're in favor of freedom, by definition, you want to minimize the size of government, because government is really the antithesis of freedom, because government takes away some of your rights. Government has power, they have a monopoly on force. So if you have government that, fulfills its legitimate function, which is just the protection of life and private property and to help you secure your rights, then a limited government can be a force for good, because it's possible that having government can lead to greater freedom and greater prosperity. But the problem is governments rarely stay small. Once you create a government and you give it some power, that power corrupts, and the government gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then the government causes more harm than it does good. And I think pretty much every country in the world, government has already grown beyond the point where it's a positive force and it's become a negative force. And so the world would be much freer and much more prosperous if we had a lot less government.
I think what he's trying to say here is that with government, the main reason you have a government is so that you can delegate some rights that you individually have to them in order for them to like do it on your behalf, right? And there's only really one right that you actually have, which is the right to protect yourself and your property. And or initially, that's what government was made to do, right? Like it's not really a government at that point. It's just basically a force that you can use in order to protect yourself in case somebody is trying to commit harm against you, your family, or your property.
Is a key word right now, especially because of everything that we've seen over the last 2 years. So what was the issue for you in terms of the lockdowns and the mandatory medicines? Is that really does that go against your beliefs in terms of how big or how small a government should be?
Well, absolutely. I mean, all these governments forced people to stay at home. They forced businesses to close.
Like imagine in 2019, you tell somebody that the government is going to make you close your shop. You're not going to be allowed to leave. You're not going to be allowed to use public parks. Imagine you told somebody that in 2019, they would have told you that you'd be out of your mind. Like, no joke, they would have told you that. If you told me that, I would have been like, you're out of your mind. So whatever happened like in 2020, that was like a huge psychosis, man.
Supposedly because it's for the public good. But we're supposed to be a free people, and we don't act for the collective good of society. We act for our own individual good, and we make our own choices. And if you believe in that, that's how you have the most prosperity for everybody. I mean, the whole collectivist idea, that mindset that the individual needs to be sacrificed for some greater group good, that has never worked. That has always led to misery.
And it has never worked throughout history. Actually, if you actually look back at history, most governments use the idea of like the collective overpowering the individual in order to execute like their genocides, right? Like they always have to blame somebody, because that's just how the basis of Marxism, socialism, all of it has to blame something else other than the person who is in charge, aka the government.
I think what should have happened with COVID is people should have been free to make their own decisions. If people wanted to wear masks, they could wear masks. If they wanted to take a vaccine, they can get a vaccine. If some businesses wanted to stay open, they could stay open. If some customers wanted to go to those businesses, they could. Employers, employees, everybody is free to negotiate their own decisions. And, I think if you look at countries that maybe were closer to that, like maybe Sweden, I mean, Sweden didn't have any of the lockdowns that we had yet, and so they didn't have to bear the costs. And the Swedish people are fine. And if you look at all the inflation that
like, imagine you go in 2019, you talk to somebody and tell them, if you walked in the direction of the arrows that are not pointing, so basically, how like in those grocery stores, they give you those arrows of where you can walk. Imagine you tell them that if you walk the other way, you would have killed people. Like they would have literally told you you're out of your mind, man.
Experienced today, a lot of it, not all of it, because the inflationary seeds were sown a long time before COVID. But we poured a lot of water on them during COVID because it was the worst combination of monetary and fiscal policy I've ever seen. And I called it out in real time back in March of 2020 when they unveiled the policy. They told everybody not to go to work, and they ordered all the factories shut. But then they wanted everybody to keep on spending. Well, how do you keep on spending when you're not producing? And so the government just printed a bunch of money and said, here's some money, spend this. And a lot of people were given 2 or 3 times more money than they earned when they were working, except when they were working, they were productive. They were contributing to the economic pot.
So I want you guys to remember this point that he makes here, because he actually kind of goes back on it. I do agree with him right now. Like the overall wealth and efficiency of a country is based on how much goods and services that they produce. It's not how much money is in their bank account, because that's just a number. Could you buy things with it, right? Like imagine if the government printed like millions of dollars, right? And everybody sat at home and nothing was being made. At the end of the day, what are you gonna buy if you just have a bunch of paper?
But when they stopped working, they were contributing nothing. But they were given all this money to try to take out of the pot. And so money supply exploded as goods production collapsed. And the consequences were obvious. Back then, prices would go way up, which is exactly what's happened. And you have politicians trying to blame it on COVID or blame it on supply chains. That's not why we have inflation. It's all the money that's been created by central banks, supposedly, to keep the economy out of recession while they were locking everybody down.
So not only did you have inflation kind of going through the roof via money printing, you also had productivity come down. So like whatever productivity we had literally went down. So when people say like, oh, the prices that went up like prices went up like crazy, right? You have to ask yourself, is it really just these corporations just wanting to be evil, or is it that we have way less workers, so there's less goods and services being made, plus we have the government paying a lot of money to people to sit at home, right? AKA increasing the money supply. That's pretty much what happened in 2020. That's what causes inflation. You like the most basic question you have to ask yourself is, if this is the truth, like if what the government is saying is the truth, like it's these greedy capitalists, these greedy corporations raising all these prices, why didn't they raise it 5 years ago? Why didn't they raise it 10 years ago? Why didn't they raise it like 10 years from now or 5 years from now? Why is it that it's just randomly shot up like this? It's not the corporations, bro. They're trying to lead you astray.
Politicians want to lock people down, then they have to be willing to allow a recession to happen. I mean, you can't avoid it. If you tell people to stop working and stay at home, the economy is going to have a recession. You can't try to paper that over by creating inflation, but that's what they did.
So they printed unprecedented amounts of money, quantitative easing, as we saw over the last 2 years. So in your opinion, why is that bad? And also, if you know that it's bad, why don't they know that it's bad?
I don't know. Maybe they knew and they didn't care. I mean, the problem in the United States is the U.S. economy is so screwed up. Mm-hmm. It's so fundamentally flawed. We have so much debt. We can't really survive a real recession. And so the Fed felt it had no choice but to pump the economy full of money because nobody had any savings. Nobody was going to be able to stay at home and miss a paycheck. They couldn't pay their rent. They couldn't pay their mortgage. The whole financial system would implode because everybody was living paycheck to paycheck. So how do you take away everybody's paychecks when that's all they've got? But that should have been a reason not to lock down the economy. Maybe they should have thought, you know what, we can't afford to do this, so let's just take our chances with COVID.
Exactly.
But because they thought we had a free lunch, that hey, we could just send everybody home because we've got the Fed that can just print money. They maybe didn't understand that you can print a lot of money, but that doesn't mean that money's going to buy anything.
Okay, Schiff is not dumb, right? But he cannot explicitly say that, like, they knew and it was deliberate. They definitely knew. These people that work in the banks are definitely informed. They know what's going on. They're not stupid, okay? I promise you, like, even if the politician is a dumbass, when they go and try to give this information and they try to give this command to the bankers know. And when they allow something like this, it's not because they're dumb. It's because they know 100% what it's about. And in my opinion, like my personal opinion, I do believe that it was orchestrated, it is organized, and it's not by accident.
The key is to produce stuff. What gives money value is the stuff that's produced, at least fiat money, paper money. I mean, you have to be able to buy stuff with it. So if you just print money that's not connected with any productivity, the money has no value, or at least the value goes down and the price goes up. So prices have to adjust to this increased quantity of money. And that's what we're seeing. And the adjustment is really just getting started. We are going to have some serious price increases in the next several years, regardless of central banks raising interest rates. And most of these central banks that are raising interest rates are going to keep printing money. And even though they're raising interest rates, the rates are still low. Look, the ECB raised rates today 75 basis points, up to 1.5%. Their inflation rate is 9.5%. That's negative 8% interest.
Yeah.
And that's literally only what they tell you, okay? Like, we don't know what the real numbers are.
How is that going to stop inflation? Meanwhile, they're still printing euros. But they're not printing nearly as many as the Fed is printing dollars. So the whole world, look at what's happening in Japan. Everybody is flooding their economy with paper. And so prices have to go up. There's no way to stop it.
I ask everyone this because when we talk about this, it just sounds so obvious, supply and demand, right? But what I don't understand is why they do it. Is it destruction by design? Does it...
She's trying to get him to talk, but obviously he's not going to do that.
Fit those at the top? Are they trying to push people deeper into poverty through inflation? What's your take?
Well, I think they do it because they think it's better than the alternative of not doing it. Because politicians, their main goal is to get reelected. That is the fundamental problem with any kind of democracy, is that the leaders just want to get reelected. And if you're
This is why you can't allow them to have a money printer, right? If they have a money printer, what they're going to do is bribe the voters, right? They're going to tell them, look, we'll give you this for free, we'll give you education, health, all these things for free but they don't want to tell the person, that they're going to have to pay for it via taxes. So what they're going to do is pretty much just print money from the back end, right? Because if they tell the voter that, oh, we're going to raise taxes and give you free education, the voter's going to be like, fuck that, right? So they have to do it through another more chicanery, through more nefarious ways.
Election depends on getting 51% of the vote. You basically have to bribe the electorate. I mean, 51% of the people are not that bright, right? You know, they're not going to understand economics, so they're just going to vote for whoever promises them something for nothing, right? They don't understand that there is no free lunch. They just want whatever they can get for free. That's why the United States was, formed as a republic. Our founding fathers tried their best to protect us from the evils of democracy. Mm-hmm. It worked for a while, and the country prospered when democracy was kept in check. But now it's kind of run amok, and it has all over the world. So when politicians want to give out free stuff, they don't want the public to know that they have to pay for the free stuff. So they don't want to have to raise taxes. So they want to say, here's some government program. I'm giving you education. I'm giving you health care. I'm giving you housing, or whatever it is they're doling out. They don't want to say, oh, but I got to raise your taxes to cover the cost. So they want to print the money to cover the cost. And so they pay for spending through inflation. But then when prices go up as a result of the inflation the governments create to pay for their programs, now they look for a scapegoat. Oh, well, we have all this inflation. What's causing this? What could it be? It must be greedy businessmen that are gouging the consumer. Maybe it's this man Putin. Yeah. Look at it. Putin is jacking prices up. It's Putin's price hikes. I mean, they're always going to try to blame somebody else for the inflation that they create. I mean, even today, at the press conference, Lagarde said that the inflation is caused by supply problems, as if the ECB monetary policy of negative interest rates and quantitative easing have absolutely nothing to do with it. Just pure coincidence. It's all just supply problems. And the same thing, Powell. Whenever Powell talks, he never accepts responsibility for creating inflation. He's always looking for some external cause that's got nothing to do with their own monetary policy, when the actual definition of inflation is an expansion of the money supply. So if that's what inflation is, how can the source be anything other than the central banks that are in charge of the money supply?
Sounds so simple. Yeah, here we are. It's unbelievable, actually. So I'm interested to know, to what extent would you like to see the government involved in our lives politically and economically?
Very small. I mean, small enough to drown in a bathtub.
He really means zero, but obviously he's not allowed to say that and say like he's an ANCAP or something like that.
What they say. But no, I mean, you just need government to secure your rights. That's all. I mean, if you look at America in the 19th century, total government spending was less than, I think, 4% of GDP. I mean, that's tiny. And
I think now we're almost at 50%, which is like mind-boggling. Okay, this means like literally the government is either paying through your taxes or through inflation.
And now it's enormous. I recently took a look because I watched the speech that President Biden gave in Philadelphia, where the Declaration of Independence was signed, and he made many references to the Declaration of Independence.
I'm gonna skip this and get to the Bitcoin versus gold part because that's where I have a lot more to chime in on.
For the colonists to want to rebel, 1 to 1.5% of their annual income.
But he does mention here that the colonists rebelled against the King George, I believe his name is. Over 1.5% of annual income, like taxation. Imagine that, 1 to 1.5%. we pay 50% here, pretty much. Imagine that.
And they were objecting. They had a revolution because they were paying 1.5%. And the king was taxing Britain a lot higher than the colonies. I mean, colonies got a good break, but even in Britain, I think the subjects at that time that were living in the United Kingdom were paying about 5 or 6% of their income in taxes to the king. I mean, wouldn't the British love to go back to a monarchy and just have to pay 5% tax?
Sounds pretty good. I'd like 5% tax.
I mean, now you have...
Anyway.
A sober person at a drunk party with all the...
Honest with you, Congress, that's where the bailouts emanated. That reckless monetary policy following the bursting of the dot-com bubble, they really want prosperity, if they really want a better life, independence. But government can take the Declaration of Independence, but government can take your money, right? Government has a gun and they can put you in jail and they can take your money whether you want to give it to them or not.
Yeah.
But a businessman can't take your money. He has to earn.
Like I'm sure a lot of you guys who have stuck around it, you guys have at least some sort of idea on like libertarian ideologies, libertarian philosophy, and why it's important. But I'm just gonna skip to this part just for the sake of the video, right?
Bitcoin,
all right, there we go. We're at Bitcoin now.
It's easy to use and it's affordable. You can, or
if you have too much money and you want to lose some, you could buy Bitcoin, and that.
Right,
I mean, the only problem Bitcoin would solve is if you have too much money and you want to lose some, you could buy Bitcoin, and that would solve your problem.
These are sound bites.
No, this is reality. Look, Bitcoin, the idea of Bitcoin is nice, and if you don't really understand what money is, you may be fooled into thinking Bitcoin is a viable alternative, but it's not. I mean, Bitcoin tries to copy the properties that made gold better money than some other commodity. It's divisibility, it's portability, it's fungibility. Yes, I mean, Bitcoin does a good job. If you cut a Bitcoin in half, right, each half is the same. Just like if I take an ounce of gold and I make 2 half ounces, they're identical. All gold is exact.
Not only that, it's also indestructible, right? Just like how gold is indestructible. Gold, you can't set it on fire, you can't blow it up. It's literally indestructible. The particles will still stay. You can't convert them to anything else. So just like how Bitcoin is the same way. Bitcoin is also, it needs labor in order for it to become something. Like you can't just pop Bitcoin out of thin air. Just like how you need to mine gold, you have to mine Bitcoin.
The same, right? It's not like if you have 2 cows, they're not going to weigh the same. They're not going to, or stuff like that. But gold's gold, and so it's fungible, divisible. It's really good as a medium of exchange and a unit account and all that. But what Bitcoin doesn't have is any actual value, right?
All right, so this is where I want to disagree with him. Okay, so and I think Layah has a hard time kind of breaking his argument down. So this is where I wanted to make the video. If I was the interviewer, what I would say is, what is value, right? Value, realistically, if we are to really break it down into something, it is effort, time, and attention put into the physical realm by us human beings, and it being turned into something physical, right? Well, not just physical, but it could be like, I don't know, like if I put effort driving somebody around, obviously it's not physical, but you can see that there was effort made in order to create the thing, right? So that's what real value is, right? So when you go to purchase something and you're and you want to give the person an exchange for their work, right? You can give them like either like a cow or whatever he said, right? Like anything like that. You can give it to the other person. However, sometimes, let's just say like he picked oranges and he gave you oranges for this cow. Sometimes he doesn't want to spend like the money right now. Like he doesn't want to trade away the cow right now. By money, I mean whatever store of value that you're using. Sometimes he doesn't want to do that, right? However, the cow might age and die. So because of this, we had to choose something else as a form of exchange. So it's not really about Bitcoin having value. It's really more about what are you using as a medium of exchange. Like it doesn't have to intrinsically be usable in order to have that medium of exchange. Some people, like on islands, they would use these rocks, for example, right? Like sometimes these rocks might they use it by weight. Like this rock might have weight, and that's how they usually like measure value. If they didn't have gold, if they didn't have something like that, right? Does that mean that there is no value being exchanged? If I picked some oranges and I traded it for this guy who worked for a cow, he traded it for this rock, and then he gave me this rock, right? Does this mean that this rock does not have value? Of course it has value, because he worked to raise up the cow. He traded that for the rock. The rock was given to me. So the rock has the inherent value of whatever labor it took in order for him to raise the cow from a calf into like a full-grown cow.
Gold does. Gold is a commodity. It's a metal. I mean, I have some gold in this watch.
Sure, he says that he has gold in this watch, but the main problem with that is the price of gold reflective of its use in jewelry, in conductive, like when it's being used for its conductivity? Like, is that why it's worth $2,000 an ounce? Absolutely not, because you could see silver is the same way, but it's worth like maybe 1,000 times less, right? 100 times less. It's worth, I think, $25 an ounce, right? What makes gold worth $2,000 an ounce? The main thing is that other people see it as a way to store their value, right? They worked their ass off. They picked all these apples. They traded them away. If they were to get a cow for it, they're never going to be able to pass the cow on to their next generation. They need to store it some other way, so they trade it for gold. This is the agreed upon medium of exchange that people set as a value, right? Nobody's trading for gold coins because they know that, oh, one day I'm going to use it for jewelry. Like, that's not how people view gold. Some people view it as shiny metal, cool, but there's other things that are shiny as well. The reason people like gold is because it is an agreed upon concept that it has value.
But so gold actually has value that can be stored, and since gold doesn't tarnish or decay, it makes it ideal as a long-term store of value, because I can have gold and in 100 years somebody could use that gold for something. It's not going to go away. And so gold...
Yeah, they can use it for something, but it will never be worth $2,000 that you paid for an ounce. There is no use for gold that puts it at $2,000 an ounce. Like, there's no use for that. Like I can't even... What else are you going to use it for other than jewelry and what's it called? And conductivity. Copper is more conductive than gold. So people don't use gold for the things that he's describing. People use gold, and the reason it has the value that it does, which is $2,000 an ounce, is because people use it as a store of value.
Great commodity to be money, because what money is the most marketable commodity. So in order to become money, you have to start out as a commodity, and then you can become money. Now, you also...
That's not true. It doesn't have to be a commodity and then it becomes money. Like I said, there are people on islands that use rocks in order to think. There's people that use salt, fish. I mean, you could say these are commodities, okay, but there's rocks, there's seashells. Like, a seashell is not a commodity, right? Nobody can use seashells for anything. But people do use them where there is no gold available, like on islands and stuff like this. So it doesn't have to be a commodity in order for it to become money. And this is where this is the linchpin to the fall of his argument. Because he thinks that you need to have some sort of use for the money, that's not true at all.
Fiat money, which a lot of people that are pro-Bitcoin understand the problem with fiat money. And the way fiat money came around is governments, or not even before governments, private issuers would hold real money, gold, in a vault, and then they would issue a note that was backed by that gold that would circulate as a substitute for gold. And those notes...
A commentator said, but gold also has a high ability to reflect and absorb heat energy. What I'm trying to say is there are hundreds of metals that have very similar properties. They might not be indestructible like gold, but the main reason that gold has the price that it does and nothing else comes even close is because it is a store of value. It's not because of its actual industrial uses. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not worth $2,000 an ounce worth of industrial use. Nobody would ever pay that in their machinery. Unless they absolutely have to, it's irreplaceable, right? But even then, there's not enough machines using gold to warrant a $2,000 an ounce value. The reason it's worth this much, I mean, it could probably be worth maybe $500 an ounce, $1,000 an ounce, something like platinum. But the reason that it's double this is because people store their money in it.
Were currency. But what gave the currency value was the gold that was in a vault somewhere backing it up. But it was more convenient to trade in the currency than in the actual gold. But what happened later on is currency started to circulate because of government that was backed by nothing. And it just derived its value from faith. People just believed that it would have value, despite the fact that it was no longer tied to anything of real value like gold. So what...
Yeah, and the reason that money is alive right now, like fiat money is alive right now, is because people have faith that it will store their value, right? When they work, they trade their time for these pieces of paper, it's because they believe that their time, their hours are being kept alive in this piece of paper, right? In this banknote, right? And there was nothing wrong with that. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. The problem is that we have somebody that can print this paper out of thin air. And that is where fiat fails. When it was a token of how much gold you had in the bank, that was not a failure. It's still a piece of paper. People had faith that, oh, it will store their value, right? But there was no way to make more of it, or at least like theoretically, right?
Bitcoin really is like that fiat currency that a government creates, where it has no actual value. But if people have confidence in it, if people believe that it has value, well, then it will have some value temporarily until people stop believing. But in the meantime,
absolutely not. So he's comparing that the Bitcoin is the same as fiat because the reason that they're still alive is because the reason that they're still alive is because people have faith that they will store their value in them. And I mean, to that extent, I agree. But the problem is that the main reason people put their faith in Bitcoin is because they think it's a good store of value and it will be used as a store of value. That's what most people bank on, is that people will use it as a way to store their value in the future, right? That's why people put their money in it now. And that's why I put my money in it now. I believe that in the future, we as human beings will value our freedom, our sovereignty, right? Enough to excavate ourselves from the fiat system and choose a money system that has the same properties as gold, right? And it might be gold. Like, I'm not against people using gold. The only problem with gold is that it's hard as hell to move, right? And it's a little bit more centralized. But the idea of Bitcoin is that people will value their freedom enough to extract themselves from the fiat system and move on to another money system, right? They could go back to gold. They could move on to something like Bitcoin.
Even though there are people who believe that Bitcoin has value.
And it's the same thing with gold, right? Like, gold is $2,000 an ounce because people believe that it has value, right? Yes, it could be used in industrial systems, but at the same time, it's also not worth as much. It's just like how, for example, people use things like in Britain, for example, before they use gold, sometimes they used fish. Like when things crash, obviously fish is not as efficient because you can have different size fish, but usually they use by weight. Or in Africa, they use sugar or salt. There's different things that people use, right? But when people spend their money into salt, it is not because I'm banking on selling it to a restaurant that will use it to season their food. I'm not, when I go and buy gold, I'm not buying this gold with the thought that, oh, if I ever need money, I can sell it to like a industrial machine owner that will be able to use the gold for whatever use, right? Like, that's not the intention most people have when they go buy gold. Most people buy gold is because it holds value. And that's the same thing with Bitcoin. And that's the same thing right now with fiat. The problem is that people who believe in fiat are delusional. The reason is because somebody can backdoor you on the back end via money printing. That's the only difference. All of them is faith-based belief that money has value, like this item has value.
Bitcoin itself is so volatile in price and so expensive to transact in that it can't even function as a unit of account or as a...
This point is true that what he's saying is that money right now can't be Bitcoin right now cannot be used as transactionary because it's too volatile, and I agree with that. But that's the main reason it's early adoption right now. Like, people who can see the vision that Bitcoin is, right? They're willing to early adopt it and live through these ups and downs. But I mean, I'm pretty sure when people started using salt, they couldn't figure out a price in the beginning because there was not enough people entering and leaving the market. There was not enough transactions happening in order for us to figure out a solid market price for salt. Same with sugar, same with any of these things. So let me rewind it back so that you guys can hear everything he said.
where it has no actual value. But if people have confidence in it, if people believe that it has value, well, then it will have some value temporarily until people stop believing. But in the meantime, even though there are people who believe that Bitcoin has value, the Bitcoin itself is so volatile in price and so expensive to transact in that it can't even function as a unit of account or as a medium of exchange. And it can't be a store of value, so it doesn't even have any of the characteristics that would be required to make it money. It's just a speculative token.
That's exactly. This is what I'm saying. I hope you guys are seeing what my point is against this argument. It is, yes, it does not have value. It has value right now, but the value is based on the future pretense that people will adopt it as a way to store their value. That's what the value is of Bitcoin right now.
And the price can change based on the mood of buyers and sellers, and eventually I think the price zeroes out.
First one I want to get to first is where its value comes from. A lot of people say that Bitcoin doesn't have any value, and I think they land there because they don't really understand how a Bitcoin is created. So I'm going to just go through the steps, if I may, and show you where I personally think the value comes from, and you can tell me what you think. Okay, so miners all around the world use hard capital to purchase electrical energy, whether that's fiat, dollars, pounds, whatever it is. They use hard capital to purchase electrical energy. That electrical energy is then converted into computational power using the ASIC mining machinery. So specific Bitcoin mining machinery. So we now have computational power. That computational power, the ASIC miners then harness that computational power and put it into hash power. That hash power is then used to secure and validate the network. So once the network is secured and validated, there's a block reward, and the self-regulating network spits out Bitcoin. So right now it's 6.25 Bitcoin. So what happened was money went in, actual hard capital went in, and as a result, Bitcoin is created.
Yes, I can see that. A lot of...
Okay, so before he says what he said, his argument against what she's saying. So yes, like she said, there's a whole process in order to mining Bitcoin, but you have to basically expend energy in order to acquire this thing. It's just like how a miner has to buy machines, buy workers in order to mine the gold. So this is the thing that allows you to have faith in gold, that like a trillion tons are not going to just randomly come on the market. Right? This is the thing that allows you to have it. Like, if at the very basis of the psychology of human beings is that the main reason we have faith in this is because you can't just pop it up out of thin air, right? That's why we put our money in it. Imagine if you knew that somebody can literally print gold, right? It doesn't matter how functional the gold is, it will never be worth $2,000 an ounce. And that is the key thing. And that is the same understanding that Bitcoiners have, which is that Bitcoin requires work in order to produce it, right? Like, that's the key thing about it, is that you have to work. You have to put a lot of energy, hire a lot of people, use a lot of computational power and electricity in order to produce this thing. So because of this, I can rest easy when I go to bed. Let's just say I worked my ass off. I worked all day and I earned $30,000. I bought a Bitcoin. I can rest easy that nobody's going to come out of nowhere and print a whole bunch of them. That is not something that fiat has. Fiat does not have that level of security, that ease of mind when I go to bed, right?
Energy and resources are wasted creating nothing.
No, but they created something.
No, they didn't. Okay, so what if I went out there and I hired a group of people to dig a big hole in the ground, right? Spent a lot of money, people worked really hard digging that hole. Then I paid the same group of people to fill the hole back up with the same dirt that they dug out. And at the end of the day, I was right back where I started from, but a lot of work went into that, right? I spent a lot of humans were digging and filling and all that. But what have I accomplished? What have I created of value?
Okay, so his obviously you guys understood what he was saying. My argument to this is the main reason that the hole does not have actually, I don't know if he did this intentionally, but the main reason that the hole does not have value is not because like like it's a hole. The main reason it doesn't have value is because number one, you buried it, like you closed it back up, right? So what this means is you got rid of the proof of work that you did. There's no way to prove that you did this hole now, right? The difference with Bitcoin is that when you do the work, you spend the electrical energy, you are able, when you do the work, you spend this electrical energy, you're able to prove that you did this via Bitcoin. While with the hole, you cannot prove it, right? Like it's closed back up. There's no proof that there's a hole there anymore. That's number one. And number two is if you dug up a hole, right? And you have this hole in the ground, I bet you anything, if you go and you talk to like 10,000 people, at least 10 of them will tell you, oh, I can probably make use of that hole. I can put a coffin in there. I can plant a tree in there, whatever. You see? So it's even though you wasted your time and just dug up a hole, because you spent time to dig it, right? Somebody else is going to be like, damn, I mean, this guy did the work. I don't have to do it now. I'll pay you for that. And he just sold the hole. The problem is that he filled it back up. And that's where the flaw in his argument is. When you fill it back up, you pretty much erased all of the work that you did. And that's the thing, right? Like when I mine for a Bitcoin and I receive a Bitcoin, I can trade that to something else, to somebody else that values, like, hey, look, I spent whatever, like a month worth of mining in order to get this one Bitcoin, right? This person knows that I spent a month doing this. He can take that and whatever, like let's just say he mined like 10,000 oranges. He can take those oranges, give them to me, because he's not going to be able to use the oranges in time before they expire, where I might be able to. And he's going to take that Bitcoin as a store of value. And hopefully, as people adopt this technology as a store of value, it will become more and more robust.
A dirt hole is just a dirt hole. You can't do anything with it. Bitcoin has utility.
What? What utility?
So decentralization. It's one of the most secure networks in the world. You have hundreds of thousands of miners.
Yeah, but what's the Bitcoin itself worth?
It's worth whatever the market values it.
Well, that's right. But how do you know the market's going to value it at anything in the future?
Well, of course it will, because of the value of it.
What value?
So that's the same thing. You can say the same thing with gold. How do you know that the value of gold will be worth $2,000 in the future? If it becomes just an industrial metal, it will not be worth $2,000, right? It will be worth, I don't know, like half of that, maybe 3/4 of that. Who the hell knows, right? Whatever the industry that's using it is going to value it as. If people ditch gold as a store of value, it's not going to be worth $2,000. Like there is no circumstance. You know how I know this is because I have 50 ounces of gold. So if I have 50 ounces of gold stored in my location, okay, if I decide that this gold is not going to store any sort of value, okay, I'm going to sell it. And regardless of like however many people still holding on to their gold, that value of gold went down whatever amount minus 50 ounces, right? Now imagine if everybody else thought like, oh, this is not a store of value anymore, right? I do agree it is a store of value, but I'm just trying to be a contrarian to him. Imagine if everybody else thought like, oh, this is not a store of value anymore. Absolutely, the price of gold will fall down. So there's no security in that, right?
The fact that it's one of the most secure networks in the world. Earlier you spoke.
He said, because gold was worth human lives before the age of technology. Yeah, it was worth the lives of human beings because, again, people thought it was a good store of value. You understand? Otherwise, you have to tell me what use does it have, right? And this is not delving into anything esoteric, right? Like if we're going to go into the esoteric realm, I would agree with you. I think gold has a lot of uses that people and the elites are not willing to disclose. I totally agree with you there. But if we are just basing it on the layman understanding of gold, there's the industrial use, right? And with the industrial use right now, it is worth $2,000 an ounce, right? So this is combining the industrial use plus people using it as a store of value, right? Now imagine you got rid of this part. Are you going to tell me that gold will still be $2,000 an ounce? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
The confiscation of money. So the fact that you can actually hold Bitcoin.
But what are you?
Sorry.
Right, but how do you know the market's going to value it at anything in the future?
Well, of course it will, because of the value of it.
What?
Okay, so this is where she starts to fall apart, because she's not explaining the idea that like the same way that he's saying, how do you know this will have value, right? It's the same thing that I will say when, how will you know that gold will hold $2,000 worth of value, right? Like he's saying basically, how do you know that it'll be worth $30,000 in the future, right? How do you know it won't be worth like $1 or $0, right? It's the same thing as, how do you know that gold will be $2,000? You don't know. It's because people use it as a store of value, just like how people use Bitcoin as a store of value.
Value. What can I do
The fact
with
that
it?
it's one of the most secure networks in the world. Earlier you spoke about the confiscation of money.
So the most secure network on earth, sure, no problem. But the main problem with this is these are just extra perks. The main reason it has value is because people believe that it can store their wealth. That's the main reason. And it's the same reason gold has value. It's the same reason in Africa they use sugar, they use diamonds, whatever it is that they use. It might not be as solid or as hermetically sealed in terms of like efficiency as gold or Bitcoin, but that's why people store salt. Like if you go to the South America, right, you'll see that people have buckets of salt, because buckets of salt is what they use to transact with currency when they don't have currency, right? Obviously salt is worth more over there than it is in in America or Canada. The reason is because they hold the value of storing wealth in there while we don't. So obviously salt is going to be cheaper here.
That you can actually hold Bitcoin.
But what are you securing? I mean, I could have the most secure vault in the world, but if I've got nothing inside it, what good is all that security?
Yes, if people don't value Bitcoin as a measure, as a metric for storing wealth, yes, it's not worth anything. At the end of the day, it's beyond that. The main reason is because people value it as a store of money, right? If everybody understands that this is a store of money, it will become worth something. It's just like how if I have a big ass vault that's super secure with millions of dollars, right? If I know that this with millions of dollars like in cash, okay, this vault can either be worth millions of dollars worth of cash, or it can be worth nothing. It all depends on if people believe that this is a good store of value, right? Like at the end of the day, it's just paper. But right now, if I have a vault like that, obviously I'm a millionaire because other people believe that it's a good store of value.
Not protecting anything of value. There is no value that you have with that token. Now, if that token were, let's say, backed by gold, right? Let's say there was a vault that had some gold in it, and then there was a digital token that was issued instead of paper, right? That was backed by gold. I had a digital token that was backed by gold that was every bit as divisible and portable and fungible as Bitcoin, except it actually had something backing it, something of real value. That can accomplish everything that you're hoping to accomplish with Bitcoin, except it would work. It could actually be a unit of account, a medium of exchange, and a store of value, and a viable alternative to fiat money.
I would agree with him. The main problem with this is that you need somebody to safeguard it. While with Bitcoin, it's a little bit easier to safeguard. So what I mean by this is, on the higher levels of wealth, when you have billions of dollars, millions of dollars to store, okay, and you want to store, like, I don't know, like let's just say 500 million worth of gold, bro, that's like a big ass like a safe, right? Because there's gonna be like a ton heavy gold, a heavy amount of gold, right? So that's gonna be the problem of safekeeping it. Either you're gonna have to stand guard on it, or either you're gonna have to stand guard on it, or you're gonna have to pay somebody to stand guard on it. And that's the thing that Bitcoin solves. It basically allows you to keep your wealth on you. It allows you, by just memorizing the seed code in your brain, your wealth is stored inside of your mind. And that is the most powerful thing about it. yes, I agree that the tokens for gold, I mean, not only do you have something digital that's easy to transport, but at the same time, you have something physical in the physical realm. Whatever like benefits that gives, like the material. Sure, I don't disagree with that. The only problem with it is at the highest levels of wealth, it's just hard to safekeep this. That's the main problem.
So let me try to paint it in this way.
Yeah.
So I think that Bitcoin is basically an energy business, right? Try tell that to the miners that it has no value. So an example.
How is it an energy business?
Because so I know a company that put down $8,000 in, and as a result, it spits out Bitcoin, right? And so if you tell them that it has no value, well, they've just put down $8,000. So if I say to them, can I take your Bitcoin for free? They'll say, absolutely not. I technically paid $8,000 for it. Look, can I give you an iPhone as an example? So say you have an iPhone, right? And you paid $1,000 for the iPhone. And I say to you, can I please have that iPhone for free? Are you going to give it to me for free?
Well, why would I, right? I know.
Right, because you paid $1,000 for it.
That's
so
true.
why would you give it to me for free? So if I then said to you, do you know what? It's secondhand. I'll actually take it for $750. So now, because of market conditions and supply and demand, obviously, as you know, the price can fluctuate, like it can with gold, with Bitcoin, and any other.
But the thing is, right? But the cell phone actually has value. I can use it, make calls. I can, surf the internet. But if I
Sure, the cell phone has value, but is it worth, let's just say, $1,000 if people decided to? Do you think it will be? Okay, sorry. Someone said I don't like how she explains things. It's I understand where she's coming from with the cell phone, but again, right now the value of a cell phone, let's just say it's $1,000. Okay, it's worth that because people can use it only for this thing, and that's what it's worth. If let's just say the iPhone 2G was a store of value, okay, what do you think the price will be? It will be astronomical. Why? Because there's not enough out there for people to put their money in, right? That's why watches are so expensive. That's why trading cards are so expensive. At the end of the day, it's just a piece of cardboard. But people store their value in it, thinking that it will hold whatever effort that they spent in the universe, and they were able to store it in this one card, right? That money amount, right? So that's So yeah, like the iPhone is worth $1,000 because the only thing it's being used for is whatever the iPhone is used for. It is not used as a store of value. You would be surprised how high the iPhone can get once people realize that they can store value. And the best example of this is if you look up auctions on iPhone 2G, what it sells for, it's like $30,000, $40,000. MKBHD did a video on a sealed iPhone like iPhone 2G. He opened it up. He paid $35,000 for that, $40,000 for that, right? Like that tells you that there is that's what happens to an item once there's a store of value attached to it. And that's the same thing with gold. Right now, gold is worth $2,000 because yes, it's industrially used, but it also has a store of value attached to it. And it's the same thing with Bitcoin.
dumb enough to overpay, let's say I paid somebody $1 million and they gave me their phone. I mean, I'd be an idiot to pay $1 million, but doesn't mean I'm going to find a bigger fool that's going to pay me $2 million for that phone. But that's really what's going on with Bitcoin. I mean, the people who are buying Bitcoin or producing Bitcoin, yes, I agree. They're spending a lot of money to acquire or create that Bitcoin because they think they'll be able to sell it to somebody who will pay more.
And they do.
For now.
And they sell it. Why? Because they sell it to a person who's buying it. And the person is buying it, why? Because he is storing his wealth in it, right? And yes, there is the idea of, oh, I will sell it in the future. But that's literally with everything, right? Like when we buy things that try to store a value, we're doing it because we want to sell the thing later on. Well, that's why people pass on gold to their next generation. I promise you, when I give like 50 ounces of gold to my son, it's not just so that he can like use them as coin flips in Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like he's not using it for that. He's using it so he can sell to buy whatever else he needs. It's just a store of value.
But you don't know Look, as we're talking right now, Bitcoin is about $19,000 a coin. Now, at one point, it was $69,000 a coin. So there were people who bought Bitcoin at $69,000 under the impression that they were buying a safe haven store of value. And what, they're down 70% right now on that? I mean, that's a bigger decline than just about anything. I mean, you can probably...
Yes, and that's because they bought it to gamble, basically. That's what the main reason is, right? Like they're buying it, why? So they can sell in the short term. You cannot do that. That's literally gambling, right? The main idea for crypto, or at least Bitcoin, okay? The main idea for Bitcoin is that the future will hold it as their main store of value. That's the biggest idea behind it. The Bitcoin maxis believe, the people who truly buy Bitcoin and hodl, like myself, like I have not sold since literally 2016, okay? The main reason I hold it is because I have faith that human beings will value their freedom to take back ownership of their money or whatever they use as money. And in that way, they are going to either use gold or they are going to use Bitcoin. The fiat system will not survive. I 100% believe this. I 100% understand it, even if it's not in my lifetime. I'm sure it will be in my lifetime, but let's just say it's not. At some point, the fiat system collapses. It's collapsed every single time throughout history. It's never survived. There's not one occurrence in history where fiat systems survived. So because of this, and my understanding of history and my understanding of money, I need to put my wealth somewhere else. I'm willing to use gold. I'm also willing to use Bitcoin. My hope is that humanity takes back its freedom for its money without having to go into like World War III, where you're gonna be forced to use gold because the internet gets shut down. But if human beings take it back in a non-violent way, where the internet is not shut down, then it will be through crypto. I do not think that they will go back to gold. Hopefully that makes sense.
Some individual tech stocks that went down more than Bitcoin. But there's nothing safe. There's nothing secure. There's no values being stored there. But Bitcoin is 19,000 now. Who's to say that a year from now it won't be 9,000 or 1,000?
How do you know that for anything? Literally anything. How do you know that?
I don't know. I mean,
I can tell you that gold won't be zero. I agree with that. But how do you know it's going to be $2,000? You don't know that, right? So yes, his argument is that there's a stronger chance that gold won't be zero than Bitcoin, and I agree with that because there is industrial use. However, I would say that there's an equal amount of chance that gold will not be worth $2,000 10 years from now, be it below or higher.
It'll go up. I think it's...
And it will have nothing to do with its industrial uses.
Likely to go way down than go up. But something that can be that volatile and have such a big move in such a short period of time, I mean, I don't see how anybody would have confidence in it as a substitute for money.
So let's talk about that as a store of value. So gold in the last 5 years is only up 35%. Bitcoin in the last 5 years is up 2,000%.
That's a weak argument. She should not be making that.
In the last 10 years is up 3%. Bitcoin in the last 10 years is up 375,000%.
That's really bad.
I personally
That's
have
just saying trading cards, for example.
long-term view. It's only 10, 12, 13 years old. It's very new. So I'm not surprised that it's going to fluctuate like this. But in the next, I think it's going to even itself out in the next 15 to 20 years.
Look, you could have made the same argument about Beanie Babies and gold. If you go back for the first few years of Beanie Babies, you could say, well, Beanie Babies are a better store of value than...
Cameron said, I don't even know who is for or against Bitcoin, to be honest. He's against Bitcoin, obviously, and she's for Bitcoin. He's pro gold, and she is I don't think she mines gold, but I think she's pro Bitcoin.
Oh, look how much they've outperformed gold as the bubble was inflating. Bitcoin is one of the biggest bubbles in the history of the world. And obviously, as the price of Bitcoin went from pennies to tens of thousands, it outperformed everything. Right? Yeah, if you would have bought Bitcoin 10 years ago, home run. Even if you bought it 5 years ago, you made a really good amount of money. But the majority of people who own Bitcoin are losing money. That is a fact. Most people who own Bitcoin paid more than $19,000. And in fact, a lot of people who bought Bitcoin lower bought more higher. And their average price is now above the current market price. Look at some.
And that's fine. Nobody's buying Bitcoin other than the gamblers unless they're holding it for like 10 years.
Big promoters. Look at Michael Saylor. Look at how much money his company has lost. Billions of dollars. Look at that fool in El Salvador. Look how much money that poor country has lost already in Bitcoin. And they're going to lose even more. So yes, you had this huge speculative run up in Bitcoin, but that's not a store of value. That's just a speculative gain. And the only people who benefited from that are the people who sold. The people who are holding on haven't made anything. They're hoping the price goes back up, but the price is more likely to go back down. In fact, if you look at what happened to Bitcoin in 2021, that was the peak of the bubble, right? Think about all the money that was spent by the crypto industry to pump up Bitcoin and other alt.
By the way, we're back at 30,000. So we're back at 30,000
coins in 2021. Massive commercials, every network, billboards, stadiums, Super Bowl ads, conferences. Look at all the NFTs. El Salvador came out. I mean, it was one crazy thing after another. Massive hype. All the celebrities got on board. The athletes, the singers. Massive pump. Yet the price went down. You drive through my neighborhood, drive around my street. Half these houses are owned by crypto people. They came in here last year. They paid $40 million for houses in the street. Crazy prices. 8 times what I paid for my house, right? A couple years ago. Why? They were cashing out of their crypto. All the big money, as they were running all these commercials about how great crypto was and Bitcoin, what were they doing? They were selling. That's why the price didn't go up, despite unprecedented pumping. All these institutions supposedly came in. Not Michael Saylor, but Anthony Scaramucci, Skybridge funds. Those funds are down. Look at all of his funds. They're down 60, 70, 80%. The people that poured in their money are killed. And I think that was the peak of the mania. People are just in denial right now. It's a massive bear market. Look at the technicals. Look at the chart. It's a complete disaster.
So I can't wait to have this conversation again in 5 years because I think you're going to be wrong. So I want to just make clear.
I do agree. I do think that he's going to be wrong. I think he's the only way that I could imagine gold coming back as the standard is like literally everything has to come down. Like the power grid has to come down. You're going to see like wild gazelles in the middle of New York. Like that's literally what's going to have to happen before we go back to trading gold. Like I just can't imagine us going back to that. So because of this, I do believe that we are going to go into the next phase, which is crypto. Now, I do have to say, one thing that gold has on Bitcoin is that it is technically more private. If I take a lot of cash right now and I try to sell it and I try to buy gold, nobody will know, right? Unless they have cameras or something like this. With crypto, yes, there's KYC, you can hide that, there's all these things, but the main problem is that you're logged on the chain. And as soon as you spend that money, if somebody knows, if somebody sees that, they're able to get you. So there is a problem with Bitcoin, but the whole point is that you can probably just store value in it. And what I can imagine happening is that people start to use other cryptocurrencies in order to transact without having to use like Bitcoin. So you transfer Bitcoin into whatever this currency is, and then you transact with that. So that's kind of like how I see things happening.
There is a difference between Bitcoin and crypto. That's really important.
That's what the Bitcoin maximalists say.
So I'm going to start with limited supply, 21 million. That's really important. There will never be, because we know there's a hard cap. That's really important. You were talking earlier about printing money. With gold, we never really know how much gold there is. There's always more gold to be found. There's always more to be found. So I think Bitcoin,
a little bit more.
Just exactly with Bitcoin, there's a hard cap of 21 million.
If nobody wants Bitcoin, it doesn't matter how many there are. There can be one Bitcoin, and it has.
It's the same thing with. It's the same thing with. It's the same thing with like gold. Like I said, you can have a ton of gold at $2,000 an ounce. If nobody wants it as a store of value, it's going to go back down to the price that it would be at if only industrial use was there, and that's probably a lot lower than a lot of people. So like, I get where he's coming from, but my hope is that people value their freedom enough to want it.
Value if nobody wants it.
So I want Bitcoin. I want Bitcoin because when the government came and said, if you don't take our mandatory medicines, you don't take our injections, then we're going to freeze your bank accounts. I need to know that I have money that's immune from confiscation. But it is money because I pay people in Bitcoin.
That is something that's very interesting. Is that with Bitcoin, you don't need the approval of a centralized figure to do it. And that's the same thing with gold to an extent. However, you will need that thing once you start storing it somewhere else. And like I said, if you have billions of dollars, millions of dollars worth of gold, you can't store it under your bed, right? So you're gonna need the permission of somebody else in order to access that gold. And if an authority figure comes to that middleman between you and your gold, they are able to basically cut off access. Never mind them stealing from you, never mind whatever, right? So that's the main issue with gold, is that once you get to a certain level, you can't store your wealth anymore in gold. And like for us laymen's, yeah, that's fine. 100,000, 200,000, even like 500,000. It's still like just a brick, right? It's a brick as big as like this right here. That's how much gold that. Bro, no, not even that. It's like literally this much. $500,000 worth of gold is like literally this much. It's a stack like 5 kilos probably. So that is not really a problem. The problem is once you get to the higher levels. And I mean, by that, I see why gold is a very, like now that I'm thinking about it, I can see why gold is equally as plausible as a store of value for the regular plebs as Bitcoin is. Let me see what you guys are saying. I think the problem with the other precious metals is that their only value is based on their utility. New technology has potential to affect its value. Gold will always have use for purposes of vanity. I mean, sure, like jewelry, but that comes from the fact that it is worth the value, right? Like the main reason people rock like gold chains, gold bracelets is because they know like, oh, when somebody sees that, they know that that's gold. They know that like that's like expensive, right? It comes from the fact that it is expensive. So like you can't say like it's expensive because people wear it as jewelry. It's actually people wear it as jewelry because it's expensive. That's why you can't just bank on gold. Gold was just the example and not the main point. Bro, gold is essential in aerospace and space travel. I don't disagree. Gold lobby actually limiting supply of gold to not crash their prices. I agree with that too. I know about this as well. I just didn't want to go into like those types of discussion. I rather discuss philosophy. I mean, that gold has utility and use for vanity. Some metals have use for vanity like platinum, but the amount of money spent by India on gold for wear is insane. Agreed. Gold way too regulated for anyone to want to do whatever they want with it, for sure. That's why you gotta turn your gold into other materials to be able to make use of it in cash value. Counterpoint, if you have billions in gold, you can afford a private, ultra secure, safe place to store. Yeah, you can afford it, but at the end of the day, if that person is threatened, or that whoever's safeguarding that thing is threatened, they can come in the way between you and your gold, right? While for example, with Bitcoin, nobody can come in the way between you and your keys if you remember them, right? Like that's like the most powerful thing about Bitcoin is that you're able to store your wealth in your mind.
You pay me in Bitcoin.
Well,
so I'm literally
you're-
running a business in Bitcoin.
But you're not-
I got paid all the way from Hong Kong. So in a country which is under, the China communist regime, they were able to send Bitcoin to me. They didn't send gold to me cross borders. They didn't send fiat currency to me. They were actually able to send me Bitcoin.
And then what do you
it
do?
came to me instantly. It cost 58 cents. I then sent that Bitcoin to another country in the United Kingdom. I sent it to England. It cost me 58 cents. That
Who'd you
is
send it to?
incredible.
Yeah, so she's basically saying that it's being used as transactory. Obviously, it is nowhere near mass adoption. Like her saying this again shows like she's not very she knows what she's talking about, but at the same time like she uses like very not strong arguments, like weak arguments. She uses weak arguments to make her point.
My people that work for me and
Well, what are they
people
going to do with it?
They can do so much with it. So earlier you mentioned buying a cup of coffee. Great, let's talk about that. Right now, the acceptability for Bitcoin is incredible. You have MasterCard, Visa,
No, they don't-
PayPal,
no.
creating intermediary payment rails, which
No.
actually allow you to top up your card and then spend
Now she sounds like an ad.
Bitcoin.
No,
I can't take this off and get a cup of coffee with it.
You can. The intermediary is called the gold shop, where you go and give them that and you get dollars in return. Just like how MasterCard is an intermediary where you give them Bitcoin, they give you cash to go buy whatever, right? It's the same thing.
I don't understand how it works. You're topping up your card with dollars. What you're doing with those schemes is you take your Bitcoin and sell it, and then they load up your debit card with dollars,
It doesn't
with
really
euros.
matter. It doesn't matter because
Yes, it does.
because it still allows Bitcoin to be used.
No,
right
but
now, I can't top up anything with.
I can sell anything
how
and
I
put the
buy-
proceeds
There you go.
on a debit card.
Right,
I
but
can sell.
not this gold bracelet. What do I do with this gold bracelet if I?
You can take that to a pawn shop, trade it for a cow, trade the cow for money, and then take the money, put it in your debit card. Like whatever it is, like the idea is you have to use something in order to turn it to whatever other people accept as the medium of exchange. Right now it's USD, and that's why everything is measured by USD. But eventually the idea is that people will abandon USD. I no longer think in USD. However, I know the rest of the world does, so I have to use USD as my measure. But I do not think in USD anymore. I don't believe people will think about it in the future as well.
go buy a cup of coffee, what do I do?
No, but you wouldn't buy a cup of coffee with your gold bracelet.
Right, but I can't buy Bitcoin.
But you can also have a token backed by gold and use that to buy your coffee, and you can always do it.
A token where?
There's
On
several
a centralized
gold.
exchange, which can be frozen if I don't have the correct.
Yeah, so you can have a token on the blockchain. You can have a token on like an exchange where you can give it to somebody. It all goes back to, it's the same thing where like you're leaving $1 million, $2 million in gold with somebody. They give you this note, and the idea is that you are trusting this person to come through on their promise that this money is worth what it is. And that's how the main dollar was built, right? Like it was basically you give the gold bars to the bank will give you a note, you would go and trade this note to somebody else to buy things. That's how it worked in the past. That's how literally the dollar came to exist. However, that's no longer the case because we don't have gold equal to the amount of dollars we have in society.
Opinion?
No, on the same exchanges that people buy Bitcoin, or can be exchanged peer to peer, the way you exchange your Bitcoin. Look, Bitcoin is not acceptable to these coffee shops or grocery stores or gas stations. No, they don't.
In New Hampshire, in the United States, they do. In Malta, they accept Bitcoin. People have bought houses.
It's dependent on the people. Like the same thing with the argument of gold. Like I think what she's saying is that what she should be saying is that right now they don't accept it. I agree with her. Like there's no denying that they don't accept it. I accept it. I'm a vendor. I accept it. I know a lot of people that accept it, but realistically, to the mass population, it's like not even existent. But the idea is in the future they will. That's the main idea. In the future, people will start to lose faith in the US dollar. Once that happens, there will be only two solutions and the market will choose. It will either be gold or they will choose Bitcoin. That's what I'm saying.
With Bitcoin, you even accept Bitcoin on Schiff Gold.
No, you don't understand how it works. We don't. The way Schiff Gold sells gold, people have Bitcoin. They use this company called BitPay. BitPay sells the Bitcoin to get dollars, and then they use the dollars to buy the gold. So there has to be a buyer for those Bitcoin in order for you to sell them to buy something else. When there's no buyer for Bitcoin, the bottom drops out of the market because there is no natural demand for Bitcoin because Bitcoin isn't used for anything.
It's a payment of medium of exchange. It's a medium of exchange.
No, it's not.
It's divisible by 100.
Who cares that it's divisible? And
it's amazing because at the point of sale, I can't take my gold
yes, you can.
saw it in half.
You don't have to
figure out how much it is. You know how much.
Wait.
What's the value of
do you realize that?
Yeah, but you could do that before. That's literally what you could do before. Before, you could turn your gold into a point of sale via cash dollars.
Was using gold as money for thousands of years. You think people were walking around with saws, sawing off their gold? Of course not. And now with the internet, with blockchain, and with other technology we have, your gold can sit in a vault and it can circulate without you ever having to touch it. So gold is going to work much better as money today than it did in the 19th century, the 18th century, the 17th century, or thousands of years before that. I mean, gold still works. You don't have to try to reinvent the wheel when the wheel still works. And by the way, Bitcoin isn't a wheel, so it's not going to work at all. But I wanted to get back to your 21 million, as if that's some kind of small amount, right? Well, each Bitcoin just represents an arbitrary quantity of Satoshis. So one Bitcoin is
100 million.
100 million. So there's 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis. Are Satoshis scarce? There's 2.1 quadrillion of them. Are they scarce?
Well, there's 21 million Bitcoin.
No, but who cares?
Oh, no, it does matter. 21 million Bitcoin.
But I don't need a whole Bitcoin. I'll just buy a Satoshi and I'm in there.
Great.
So there's 2.1 quadrillion of those. Okay. Now, the thing is, see, people
there's
say...
There's a limited supply, and that's what matters.
No, but I don't need a whole Bitcoin. I could do just as much with one Satoshi as I could do with one Bitcoin, which is nothing. Because one Bitcoin has no value, and neither do the Satoshis. So it doesn't matter if I have 2.1 quadrillion or just one.
Well, Bitcoin's value right now is $19,000.
Yo, Schiff, man. Peter Schiff is two jokes.
No, that's its price. No, that's its price.
Right.
So you have to understand the difference between price and value.
Okay.
Right. And price is what you pay. Value is what you get. So you can pay a high price, but not get a lot of value. Like I said, I can offer to buy your bracelet for $1 million. And if I offered you $1 million for your bracelet, you'd take it, right?
I don't know. It's my grandma's. Can you make it?
Oh, well, how about your shoes?
I'll give you for $1 million.
Yeah, right. Well, am I going to get, just because I paid you $1 million for those shoes, does that mean I own $1 million pair of shoes?
I think that's a very surface way of looking at it right now. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, no, you don't own $1 million worth of shoes. But the idea is that if people use it as a store of money, right? There's not enough in 21 million. Obviously, there's more than 21 millionaires in the world, right? You think that these guys are just gonna have one? They're gonna have one Bitcoin? Like they're gonna have way less than that, right? So the idea is that you need the Satoshis in order to separate, and I'm sure that there's more than trillions or quadrillions or whatever worth US of currency notes in the world, right? Because the idea is Bitcoin is an international currency. It does not rely on SWIFT system. It does not rely on any type of banking system. So everyone in the world can use it. So if everyone in the world can use it, do you think that there's not more than a quadrillion currency notes in circulation? Of course there is. 100% there is. If the US is in the trillions, how could literally the whole rest of the world is not? Let me see what you guys are saying in the meantime. Gold is not scalable for payments. you're not sending gold itself, you're sending the note, but it goes back to the same thing, which is the banking system. Don't you think we will end up in the same situation now if coins become fully mainstream, where the majority just store in a bank, but instead of storing dollars, we store coins? Yes, I do agree with this. The main change that has to happen is mentally. It is not like, look, Bitcoin is not going to save the world. The thing that's going to save the world is people waking up in their mind and realizing that they have to take responsibility for themselves. That's the main thing, okay? If that does not happen, no amount of Bitcoin, no amount of revolutions is going to do anything, okay? The biggest revolution has to happen in your mind. So once we understand this, okay, now let's just say we have revolution in our minds. Now we can go into what are the practical uses in order to exact freedom amongst all. And the main way to do it is, number one, we have to control the money. And a good way to control it is through the cryptocurrency, right? Like, you can't, it's a lot harder to steal cryptocurrency than it is to steal gold if you are taking the right precautions, okay? Like, at the end of the day, physical gold, like, actually, no, it's the same thing. Like, they're both, you can steal both. It's just, this is like a little bit of a harder way to steal Bitcoin than it is to steal gold, but it's pretty much both. Like, if somebody wants to commit theft, they're gonna commit theft. So I don't want to make a bad argument there. What do you think of what Peter has to say, strictly in general sense? I mean, like, do you find his arguments convincing or no? I am of the opinion that I think that people will want to take more control of their money. They will not want to rely on a middleman to store their gold, aka go back to a banking system. They will want to control the money once the system falls. Once the system falls, I'm banking on that idea. So because of this, I have a bigger position in crypto. If you think people will bank on, once the system falls, everything collapses. If you think that we are going to go back to people are going to hand over their wealth, put it in the bank, and trust them with it, then you would be banking on gold. And to me, I'm not saying I'm not exposed to gold. I told you guys, like, I have 50 ounces. Like, I hold a pretty good position in gold for how much I'm worth, but majority of my money is in Bitcoin. But if people don't want to take that initiative, they don't want to control their money, I think that what's coming with the economic collapse is going to be so traumatic and so catastrophic that people will have a mind shift. I just don't think that they'll be the same way, because anybody who does not will get washed up by the wayside anyway. Like, they're gonna get removed. So those people don't matter. I'm saying whoever remains. I think whoever remains will want to take accountability for their money. The amount of scams that would occur if the average person acted as their own bank, where they need to take care of their own security, would be huge. I disagree. It's the same thing where it's like that same argument that people say where it's like, if there's no lights in the streets, nobody would know how to drive. Even though we've seen it in many countries, for example, like India, where there's literally no stop signs, the traffic weaves in and out, no problem. We've seen it even in the West, where if the lights go out, people know automatically to how to facilitate themselves. I just don't think that is true. I think the reason that people believe this right now is because they've seen, they live under comfortable conditions. But once they're stressed out, once they're in a position where they are not comfortable, I think people will be a lot more diligent. Or they might have to get scammed and then become diligent. But I just don't think that it's just going to be like this whole mess where just because daddy's not around. Quick question. World Trade Center. One country trades 1 skid of gold for, say, take 1 skid of that vault. Put into 5 minutes later, price changes on the trade floor. Gold is tangible, just not how we see it. Facts. Said too much, but have a good day, everyone. Okay, thank you for that. I don't think most people want to take that initiative, though. Most people can't even stick to a budget or handle their debt. Yes, they don't have to because the government is offering to buy them out. They're offering bribes. Once all of those things are gone, okay, and people start to realize, oh shit, if I don't save money, my cat is not gonna eat. Oh shit, if I don't save money, if I get sick, nobody will pay for my health care. Then they'll start to take initiative. I think most people, at least in America, would rather rely on the bank than themselves. I agree with you right now because they have not been betrayed, or they have not been visibly betrayed. But all of this kind of scheme will crumble eventually. And once that happens, you can pretty much say goodbye to like any non-accountability. You're gonna see a lot more people take initiative. They're gonna be forced to. Like, you don't have a choice. When you don't have a choice, you'd be surprised what people are willing to do.
A lot of people are looking to make quick money because they don't understand the value of it. But
well, there is no value to understand.
The value is that it's non-confiscatable money, the most secure network in the world, decentralized.
Well, wait a minute. First of all, people have had their Bitcoin seized. I mean, governments have seized Bitcoin.
People who are dumb enough to hold it incorrectly on centralized exchanges where you would hold the tokenized gold. So I would never advocate ever for holding your Bitcoin or your gold tokens on a centralized exchange. Always hold it in a non-custodial way. That way, it can never be seized. They tried to do it in Canada. They literally reached out to companies who provide the non-custodial software wallets or hardware wallets. They said, can we have the names and the addresses of those people that own those funds? Can we have them? And they said, we can't. We can't stop it. That's by design. Nothing in the world. Nothing in the world is the same as that.
Right, but if you exchange your Bitcoin, right, there's going to be some kind of record of it. They'll be able to track you down. There's some kind of imprint on the blockchain where the coins have gone from one wallet to another.
But be smarter, don't do that. And the idea
so just have your Bitcoin and never use them? Just keep them buried?
Because the idea is, look, well,
so he's saying that obviously as you use the Bitcoin, right, as it becomes more of a transactionary coin instead of just wealth storage coin, it will be registered on the ledger. And that's like literally the whole point of blockchain, the whole point of crypto. She's saying like, don't use it. No, obviously you have to use it because that's how the thing works. And I agree with him. I think it is trackable. I mean, I'm a big advocate of Monero. The only problem with Monero, which is basically the exact same protocol as Bitcoin, the only difference is that like the blockchain disappears, right? So once it's registered, it's gone. So you can't trace it. But for the most part, though, like, I mean, I did not pay for my keys. Like, I don't put in my information when I bought my wallet, right? I don't put in, like, you have to literally play 5D chess. It's like, literally you have to put yourself in the position of the worst criminal possible. How could I make sure that nobody knows where this is? I ship it to a different address. I go hire somebody to go get that thing. Because that's literally the most amount of wealth that you have. And that's what you got to do, man. But yeah, I really like Monero. I love Monero. I think it's the coin. But it did not have the same immaculate conception that Bitcoin had. And that's the main thing. Let me see what you guys are saying. I don't think people will adapt that easily, but I guess I just have less faith in people than you do. Yeah, I have a lot of faith in humanity. I don't believe that we are this way because we are born this way. I don't believe that that's human nature. I think it's basically just our condition, the way that we are conditioned by the elites, the way that we're programmed by the elites. I don't think that human beings are just naturally evil. Human beings are naturally bad. I just don't think that. I just don't think that human beings are dumbasses either. I just think that when you make a human being comfortable, they become a dumbass. You can exchange Bitcoin offline with OpenDime. Offline payments are possible in many ways. Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, even my Bitcoin that I buy, I either like I get it like locally or I have my ways. Those two that tried to launder over 1 billion in crypto thought that they were safe, transferring it like thousands of times, and FBI just got them. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, guys, listen. Like I said, not gold, not Bitcoin, not Ethereum, not salt, nothing, okay, will save humankind unless their mind is freed, okay? Their mind is the thing that has to get freed. If we are still slaves mentally, no system can ever save us. No economic system, no political system, nothing can ever save humanity unless they free themselves mentally. So I'm saying, let's just say we got past this hurdle. Now we can think of an economic solution, and that's what we're discussing here. But I do not think that any economic system will save humanity unless they value their freedom more than their life.
Because Bitcoin's only 12 years old, right? So as time goes by, there'll be more acceptability.
How do you know?
It.
I mean, as far as I can tell.
He's saying, how do you know that there's going to be more acceptability for it? We don't. We're banking on that fact. Like I don't think there's any way to know. Even his basis of knowing that gold will be accepted is based on the past, which is a very strong, in order it's a very strong argument. Like, I'm not going to deny that. Obviously, the people in the past knew what they were doing. I don't think that people of the past were just cavemen. I don't think that. I've never thought that ever. I thought some of the greatest philosophy came from people that were like 2,000 years old. So those people definitely knew what they were doing. However, it might be that this is something new. And that's what I'm banking on, right? Like, you can either go with the past or hope that the future will be different.
So far?
No, the only thing that's happened over the last 12 years is you have more people gambling with Bitcoin. I don't go into any stores where they're taking Bitcoin. No prices, no goods and services are priced in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is no more used as a medium of exchange or...
I mean, for the most part, yes. But I would say I'm a store and I take Bitcoin.
But it's not priced in gold either. It's not priced in gold either.
I know, because
and it will be.
No, it was at one time,
years ago.
and it will again. It's easy to price things in gold.
It will again. You think,
yes.
you think I'm going to go down to the shops, get some bread, and it's going to be priced in gold?
I think there will be plenty of merchant.
I don't know why she's mocking that. That's literally how they transacted throughout all of history.
When there's a lot of inflation, people either they'll price it in gold or they'll price it in a currency that's backed by gold. The world has been on a gold standard for thousands of years. There have been pockets of time where the world has experimented, not on as grand a scale as right now, but individual countries have gone off the gold standard, gone to fiat, the currency has collapsed, and they go back to gold. Right? Everybody always goes back to gold because gold works. It's the best money that we've invented as men.
Gold has been used for thousands of years, and that's absolutely right. It has, all the way back to Moses, that they were using gold then. But we live in this new digital world where everything is digital, and I think we need money which can cater to that. For example, I went for lunch the other day, and I was getting the menu, and the menu was a QR code on my phone. So
I do think that there is some level in the elite leadership that is pushing us into electronic currency. I don't doubt that. I don't think that that's incorrect. I just don't think that they will allow everybody to go back to gold. I mean, I don't have a problem with gold. I think gold is God's money. If you read any scripture, okay, it always mentions gold and silver, okay? Any religious text, anything, it always talks about gold and silver, right? So if they have any merit, if these scriptural texts have any merit, and there is any sort of truth in them, obviously this metal was here before human beings were, and it will be here after we're here, right? Like, it does not get destroyed. So because of this, I understand the merit of it, and that's why I will not sit and just not own any of it, right? Like, I have to own some, but at the same time, I just don't think the elites will allow us to go back to gold. I just don't think that will happen.
Is now digital entirely on my phone. I'm reading books, I'm using Kindles, I'm not putting vinyls in when I'm listening to music. Everything is digital now, so we need money, which is also digital.
Let's finish the analogy. So you went and had lunch. Did you have digital food or real food?
Of course, I have real food. I'm still a real person.
Exactly. So money needs to be real too, right? You can't just replace gold with digits.
Money does not need to be real. Money is not real right now. And people are still using it, right? Like, money's not real right now. So, no, it does not have to be actually physical in order to use money. Like, it's not something that... The reason that you need a house or food is because that's the physical realm. That's the physical realm in order to sustain the body. However, when I do labor, right, and I get paid in a check, right, that's not real. Like, it's just numbers on the screen.
Claim you have digital gold any more than I can eat a digital sandwich and say I just had lunch, right? Or I'm living in an actual house. There can be a digital house, can't live in it, can't keep me warm, right? I'm not going to get any shelter out of a digital house. So there's some things that have to be real. How are you going to get this huge adoption when it has such bad reputation all around the world?
Great question. So that's...
It doesn't have bad reputation. It only has bad reputation to, like, the people who don't understand anything. Okay, it has a bad reputation to the people who love government. That's who it has a bad reputation for. People who don't understand that the government is not good for you, people who don't understand that the government is not there for you, those are the people that think Bitcoin is bad. I don't think anybody who understands how toxic government is hates Bitcoin.
Implying that it's a Ponzi scheme, essentially, because it's like, well, if nobody needs it and everybody pulls out money,
pyramid, or
right, for sure, right. But Bitcoin doesn't need all these investors in order to survive, because the fundamental utility is still there.
What?
Money, which is non-confiscatable.
But it's not money.
Well, it is money, because money is something.
Like, how can you say it's not money? Obviously, if people use it to transact, it's money. Like, if people use it to trade value, it's money. How could you say it's not money?
Money. Buy and sell goods with it. Gold, on the other hand, is totally confiscatable. People have been confiscating gold since the dawn of time. Whether it's Franklin D. Roosevelt.
He didn't confiscate it.
Okay, here she makes a. Okay, I'm gonna.
I literally read about it. I was reading all about it today. He literally said to people that you force them to sell their gold below the market value.
No. So what Roosevelt did is he issued an executive order, and he said, if you have gold, you have to turn it in. Right, and we'll give you dollars.
Right. Exactly, you have to turn it in. Excuse me, I don't want you to turn in my gold. This is my gold.
Right.
I thought she was getting mad at him for a second.
This is my money. I am a sovereign individual.
Right.
Why are you telling me what I can and can't do with my money, Mr. Government?
Right, but a lot of people didn't turn in their gold and nothing happened to them.
Yeah, and that's because the government didn't do anything about it. But in other places, they definitely have done something about it. You can't say that, oh, they didn't. Like, that makes no sense. It's like literally saying, oh, I'm going to commit a crime if I don't catch it. If they don't catch me, that means it's fine. Like
the government.
I don't want to take that risk. That's
not saying that whatever the government decrees is a crime, obviously, but you get what I'm saying.
That's like you don't have to pay your taxes. Well, that's like you pay your taxes, but I'm not going to pay my taxes and hopefully nothing will happen to me.
The government didn't send troops door to door looking for gold. Look, gold is...
Yes, but they can, and that's the whole idea. That's the main problem with it.
Gold is very hard to confiscate because you can't. If I have gold,
no, it's not. They can knock on the door. They can come and take it.
If I have gold,
excuse me, I have a warrant for your arrest. Let me in your.
Bro, they can do the exact same thing for Bitcoin. They can do the exact same thing. Like, bro, they can literally torture you and get you to say your seed phrase. They can torture you and get you to say where your gold is. It's the same thing. Like, come on, man. Like, sometimes I think she's really bright, but sometimes like some amateurishness shows.
Where's your gold? If you don't tell me where your gold is, I'm going to take you to jail.
Okay, all right. I have a warrant for your arrest. Tell me where your Bitcoin is.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, why we think you do?
Okay, go look for it.
Well,
go look for my gold as well. If I buried it somewhere, how do you know?
not going to find my gold either.
Well, of course they can. Of course they can. They can look
So
for
they
it because
can't-
it's physical and it exists in a
Well,
physical
isn't your Bitcoin stored on something physical? You have like a flash drive, or even if you wrote down your seed phrase on a piece of paper?
It's not on a piece of paper. It's in my head.
Oh, your whole seed phase is in your head.
Yes, because I
Yeah,
understand
look,
what it means to be a sovereign individual, and I do not take that lightly.
So then
I
what
take
if
very
you forget
seriously.
it?
Well, I won't.
Well, how do you know?
Well, I have backup plans.
Well, where
She's cute, but that's not happening, bro. They'll torture your ass.
are those?
I can't tell you.
Well, see, maybe the government will find that.
Good luck. It's at the
Well,
bottom of my keys
well,
are at the
it's-
bottom of the river. My keys are at the bottom of the Florida Keys.
Maybe,
with my guns as
maybe
well.
that's where my gold is too, right next to your seed phrase.
Your gold is in a vault. We know your gold is in a vault.
You know where my gold is.
I personally don't, but I'm sure the government does.
Look, you've got some gold around your neck.
I do
You've got
have
some
a Star
gold.
of David. I have this.
Yeah,
from
you
my
have gold in
grandmother.
there. That's real value. That's worth more than your Bitcoin.
Well, it's not, and I can't get a cup of coffee with this. I can't run a business with this. I can't.
Well, you could sell it and then you can go buy. But I wouldn't. I would
I can
use
sell
other
it.
gold.
I don't wanna sell it.
But if you want to buy Bitcoin coffee, you have to sell your Bitcoin to buy your coffee.
Right now, there are, of course, these intermediaries which allow that exchange.
Yeah,
to
but you
happen,
can do that.
Of course.
You
but
can do-
eventually, as mass adoption grows,
But how do you know
there
it's
will
going to
be-
grow?
Because it's already happening.
No, it's not.
It is.
No, it's not.
You can go to New Hampshire, like I
No.
said, and you can buy coffee. There are places
Well,
where I come from in
maybe
London
you
where
can
you can
find.
accept coffee.
Yeah, maybe you can find a lone coffee shop that's owned by some Bitcoin fanatic that is like, I'll take.
But you can say the same thing about Visa, right? Like for example, when Visa was first coming out, not a lot of shops were taking it. Now everybody takes it, right? So you can make that same argument. When Visa came out, people were like, "Oh, are you out of your mind? Take this paper and make it into this card and have this." I'm sure they said the same thing too, and only a few lone coffee shops accepted it. Eventually, I think it will be mass adopted. I mean, if me, a small business, but again, the only way it'll be mass adopted is people start valuing their freedom. That's it. Like if people don't value it, like nothing's going to change.
Bitcoin, and maybe every once in a while some other Bitcoin fanatic happens to visit that coffee shop and they do a deal. But it's very rare that it's happening. And it's, I would say personally, fewer companies probably are marketing that they take Bitcoin than they were in 2017.
We're in a bear market right now.
Well, we've been in a bear market for a couple of years.
No.
But yes, we have.
We were in a bull market last year. That's
Yeah, that's over. That's long gone.
Of course, but as time goes by, we'll continue to. I think the bull market will come.
I think what will happen is this. If I was to see like a scenario play out where Bitcoin gets mass adopted, is what's going to happen is, first of all, the dollar has to start rising via inflation, not like value-wise. It has to start falling in value. And people are going to scramble to put their money in anything, right? And when they do that, what's going to happen is they're going to have gold, which is what most people rely on. And then a segment will have Bitcoin, okay? However, when the currency starts to collapse, you're going to start to see a lot more problems and theft happening in the streets. And when that usually happens, people want to secure their money in like a way where it's not, you just can't break into a house. And I think that's what will drive people to put some money into Bitcoin in the like after all the options right out. Like they put their money in gold. Shit, man, like I just got robbed. Okay, so people are going to talk about it, and that's why I really appreciate like someone like her, where she's constantly like putting the hammer, like, hey, if shit hits a fan, you have this option available for you. And I'm sure even when I make this right now, I'm sure all of you guys who are listening, at some point when shit hits the fan, you're gonna try and put your money in gold if you don't believe me. But eventually you're gonna be like, oh man, all my gold is getting stolen. Let me put it somewhere that does not get stolen. So that's kind of what's gonna happen. I think that's how I see it play out, at least. And then word of mouth will spread it more and more until people start get the paycheck, put it right away, so that they don't have to store, like a wad of USDs every time they get paid.
Well, we might be in a bull market when Bitcoin goes from 5,000 back up to 10,000. But it's all going to be part of the overall bear market, because then it'll go from 10,000 down to 1,000. And then maybe it'll go from 1,000.
But that's not true. Over the past like 6-7 years, it shoots up, comes down, shoots up again, comes down higher than what it was before.
To 3,000. Oh, it's a bull market. And then it goes from 3,000 to 300. Right, and but we're headed lower, right? The market has peaked, and now it's just about how much longer does it take for the rest of the air to come out of this bubble.
I'm going to paraphrase Elon Musk here. Elon Musk says something really interesting, and it's kind of a touchy subject, so just bear with me the way I try to paraphrase this. He basically said that death is good, right? The reason he said that death is good is because it allows new ideas to come. That's what he said.
That's very funny and very ironic that he said it, even though his company wouldn't be allowed to die while the government kept funding him. Like, bro, this guy got more government bailouts than 2008 banks, man. And this guy's saying you gotta let things die. Like, Tesla should have died like 10 years ago, bro.
I know it's a little harsh, but that's what he said. So back to the coffee shop example. Right now, yeah, it's only Bitcoin fanatics that accept Bitcoin at these coffee shops. I agree with you. But as this new generation who really understand digital technology, Gen Z, my generation, millennials, as we become older, we approach our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, we are going to be doing business in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Right now, I actually pay people in Bitcoin.
Well, there may be a lot of people that own Bitcoin now that may be thinking death is good soon. They may be wishing they were dead. But
financial literacy, we need to teach people to invest.
No, like, that's not her argument. The main way Bitcoin will take off is not no understanding of technology. People have to lose faith in the US dollar. That is the main key crux of anything. Okay, it's the like I said, it's the linchpin to bringing value back to gold, bringing value back to crypto, or not crypto, Bitcoin. Okay, the main way is people have to lose faith in their government money, and people have not done that yet, and that's the main reason it has not shot up like crazy. It's the same reason why gold has not shot up like crazy. But I buy both.
Especially, with things like gold, whatever you're investing in, you need to be careful. That's financial literacy.
But my advice for Bitcoin. All of you young people who are about to get wiped out in Bitcoin, right? Just use this as a life lesson, right? The best part about losing your money when you're young is that you have a lifetime to earn it back and to learn from those mistakes. So in the future, you don't repeat them and lose even more money. And so I'm not concerned about millennials getting wiped out in Bitcoin. I mean, okay, it's like, lesson learned. And hopefully the people who...
Just to kind of capitalize, dot the I's, cross the T's for this conversation. Guys, like, realistically, there's only like 3 real things that have intrinsic value to them. Okay, there's only 3 things. The first one is food. The second is shelter. And the third is weapons. These are the only 3 things, because number 1 and 2, you need to survive. Well, food and water. Number 1 and 2, you need to survive. And the third one is so that you can protect those things. Otherwise, there is nothing that has intrinsic value other than those. Everything else is a product that comes after these 3 things. Without those 3 things, you have nothing. So if you really want to, but the problem is that obviously you can't buy food and just sit on it forever. It expires, and that's why we have to buy other things.
Went from paper fiat to digital fiat. Maybe they'll find themselves to real money, and they won't forget what they learned about the free market and stuff like that when they went off on this bad tangent into Bitcoin.
I always think people should be responsible for their own financial decisions.
Yes.
What people do has nothing to do with the value and the utility of Bitcoin. So I think it's a shame when older people get scammed. I think my grandparents are getting scammed right now by some fake Amazon caller. It's unfortunate when that happens, obviously, but that has nothing to do with Bitcoin. I could call an old person up and say, "Hi, I've got some cheap gold for you," and then what are you going to blame gold for that? No, of course not. Criminal activity happens, and you can't blame the vehicle.
What I think is fraudulent about Bitcoin is the entire thing. I mean, if you look at how Bitcoin is presented, it looks like a coin and it's gold, right? It's meant to look like gold, except it's nothing like gold. It's not a coin. It doesn't have a color. It doesn't have any of the metallic properties of gold. It can't be substituted for gold in any area where gold is used. How is Bitcoin created? It's mined, like you mine gold, but you don't mine Bitcoin. You solve a math problem. How is that mining? Calculating.
What do you mean? You spent energy trying to solve this math problem. That's literally energy. That's literally value right there. Somebody can do this that somebody else can't. That's that's value.
So the terminology is all meant to confuse people.
It's like saying I just drove somebody in a taxi, in an Uber somewhere else. Where's the physical, tangible thing? Like, there's nothing.
To get them to believe that what they're buying is something similar to gold, when Bitcoin has nothing in common with gold. It's the opposite of gold.
Well, it has a lot in common with gold.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, of course it does.
It does not.
I would be happy to say
Can you conduct electricity with it?
That's not the main value of gold. Like, he keeps saying this, but it has nothing to do with that. That's not the main value of gold. Value of gold does not come from its industrial purposes. It comes from the fact that people believe that it will hold value because historically that's what people believed.
No,
Can you make jewelry out of it?
And I don't blame them.
Other things.
I don't blame them. You know why? I promise you guys, go to a shop, okay? And have them hand you a kilogram of gold, okay? Like those bars. There is nothing that feels more satisfying than picking something like that up, okay? You know, like a kilogram of silver is freaking massive, okay? It's massive, okay? Wait, is it massive? I don't remember. Was that one? So I don't remember if I have a big silver coin this big. I don't know if that one's a kilogram. I don't remember. But I just know when I pick up this small bar, okay, that's like this big, and this is a kilogram. It's like one of the most dense metals or whatever. It just feels so nice. So I don't blame them for buying gold. I don't blame him for having his position. I just think he's an old head. I don't know. I have a coin this big though, like of silver. I don't know how much it is though, but it's heavy. But I don't know if it's a kilogram. But the kilogram of gold, ooh, so dense.
Can you do cross-border payments with gold? No, of course not.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
It's very.
Yeah, you can. You don't need to ship the gold over, bro. You can just send a note and have the person over there buy the gold. You don't need. Oh, oops.
There's no cheap Bitcoin because no matter how the price.
Oops.
That was oil. That was only physical oil for delivery. Value can be confiscated because it has gold in a token form, the same way you own digital.
Well, they did it. It was stored. It doesn't matter.
I know. Well, okay.
It's stored in Germany, and that.
It's not a fiat currency. It's real currency because it's backed by gold.
Well, I'm just saying we're back to what we were doing.
Look,
I want to make sure that I can flee when I need to flee. So as an example, just as a really important example, right? I always like to talk about Nazi Germany. I think it's an amazing example. The Nazis were there. They were taking the valuable possessions, including the gold of Jewish people, right? If they had their gold stored in Germany, that would be a big problem. Are they comfortable fleeing?
Yeah, but what if they had their gold stored in Switzerland and they just had a digital?
Well, they did it. It was stored. It doesn't matter.
I know. Well, okay, well,
in Germany, and that's bad, right? So when they want to flee and go to another country, how on earth are they going to do that? How are they going to deal with that?
Well, now though, you don't have to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, to her credit, that is a perk of having your thing stored on the digital in the digital web. However, at the same time, like, if the government wants it, they will take it. I promise you that. If the government wants it, okay, they will send over all of their dogs, okay, and they will take whatever it is that they want, okay. They will send all of their dogs. They will track down on the chain, see how much money you have on that wallet, and they will force you to give it up. So I don't think it's an argument. If a government wants you, even in Switzerland, bro, they will go and send their dogs over there, grab you, and send you back. Like, unless we solve the problem of government being able to do whatever it is that they want, no economic system is going to solve it.
Bitcoin, isn't
No,
it?
you have
So we can believe without Bitcoin.
No, you can have a tokenized gold. You can own gold in a token form the same way you own Bitcoin. The actual gold could be in Switzerland. It can be in Singapore.
Yeah, but then you're relying on somebody else doing this for you. Like, that's the main problem. You're relying on the person in Switzerland or whoever to move the gold or to send the banknote or approve all of this, right? While on crypto, while in Bitcoin, you're able to basically do it peer-to-peer. Basically, everybody is on the web is able to approve transactions.
Dubai. It can be someplace that you don't live.
It can be confiscated, and that's a problem.
But the problem with Bitcoin is the value can be confiscated because it has none. It's a price. What if you're relying on your Bitcoin? Hey, I've got all this Bitcoin that's safe, but when you go to spend it, nobody wants it. The bubble has popped. You don't know what Bitcoin is going to be worth in 10 years. It may be worth nothing, right? There's a very good chance that it won't have any value. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it will go up.
There's a chance.
But there's no chance that gold's going to be worthless in 10 years. It's just not going to happen.
I don't know.
I agree with that. It's not going to be worthless, but it might not be worth what it is today. It might be a lot lower.
Well, why would it be?
I don't know. All I know is that people would say oil would have no value, and people would say oil will always have value.
That's a thing. Anyway, like I think the argument's kind of getting stale. I think we got the gist of it. I wanted to chime in. I wanted to give you guys my thoughts, my philosophy on it. Let me know your thoughts. Comment down below. If you guys want me to do more economics, more money talks on understanding of money, understanding of currency, understanding of economics, as well as investing, comment down below. I thought this was very interesting. On my Discord, like I said, like I hope I'm big enough to be able to discuss with these people one day. But then I decided, whatever, I'll just do it vicariously through a live stream. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and hopefully you learned something. I'll see you in the next one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.